kind of the basics of canning. And if anybody wants to learn to can and is really serious this year about canning, then they can sign up next time. They have to attend the overall program where we teach them, kind of teach all the basics. But then after that, they can sign up next time for a 4-hour hands-on canning class. Okay, and we'll do that, but it'll be limited. And it has to be somebody who's dead serious on canning for this year. So that's all coming up, and we have other programs coming on up. But the whole thing is to reach our community, reach other people who have not learned a lot of these things and want to learn more. So first of all, we're going to have prayer as we do each time, and then I'll introduce our speaker. Dear Father in heaven, we thank you so very, very much for your love. We thank you for the talents you've given us. We thank you for the knowledge and the way of learning knowledge that you've given us. And I just pray that you will give us a learning spirit tonight, that we will understand what you've prepared for us out in the wild, even for us. Thank you for your blessing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And I'd like to introduce Sylvia Fagel. She is our speaker tonight and has come highly recommended. Our pastor saw her do a presentation, and that's how we learned about her. And she's going to be talking about edible wild plants and foraging for them.
I have to mention, Martha, starting with the canning. Canning is a very smart skill to know and to use, because you know good and well, someday we won't have electrical power. We won't be turning on that stove or keeping the freezer going, is what, or other things that, ways we have to preserve food. Well, I'm so not a techie. Woo. That sounds loud, even to me.
Because they're coming from in there.
Okay. Oh boy. Okay. You each have the sheet of wild edibles. I'm trying to get over being embarrassed about the sheet. I brought them, and they're crooked, and I have never had my faithful old printer do anything crooked like this before, but I think the whole batch was printed crooked. So we'll try to avoid that or forget about that. Anyway, I do want to mention I'll do that at the end, about having a good wild edible book as a guide. Oh, shucks, let's talk about that now. This is one of my favorites, produced by Pacific Press, if that means something to any of you. And anyway, it went out of print. I've forgotten when it was printed. It went out of print. It is an extremely good book. It's from 1991. And I simply go to Abe Books, and you just bought one 10 minutes ago. I find them usually between about, what I buy is between $5 and $9. And I've given these to I have 5 grandkids. They all have one. I've given them to Christmas presents to people. They're just so, so handy. Look at them when you have time after. Excellent pictures of what you're going to be eating. And the red section is the poisonous section, the red-edged pages. And the start, all these white pages in the start, are just skills about fire building on snow, and show the cover, Nature Bound. And it's meant to be just a pocket-sized book. They're very handy to carry around. Pocket Field Guide, in fact, is the kind of the subtitle. And so feel free to take a look at these. I actually will, if anyone would like to pay $5 for, I'm selling these tonight. Anyway, let's look at our printed sheet. And I've said here that if anyone is not killing animals for food, finding enough calories and protein is difficult. You're just about probably 18 hours out of every day looking for food if you're really having to forage everything and come up with enough calories. So first, the carbohydrate calorie sources. Daylily tubers. We all know the good old daylily. Martha brought all these. In fact, she dug her own up for you to taste tonight. And when you have bigger, older daylilies, there'll be a bigger rhizome or tuber here at the bottom. That's what we're after. It's starchy. It's a little potato. And so there are some cooked for you tonight to try. Anyway, the daylily, I'm always watching as I drive down the road in the summer where the daylilies are along the roads. And I'm finding fewer and fewer places that I had in mind. If I'm short of food, I'm going to have to go so-and-so, to find some daylilies. They're gone now, and I don't know if there's a poison being used along the road sides or what, who knows what, but they're kind of disappearing. So maybe Martha will let some of you take these home and plant them if you don't have your own at home. They spread fast, given a half chance, given sun and water, they spread nicely. So those are a really, really good food. You can also eat the flowers. If you have like a batter, you can dip them in. You can fry the flowers and things like this, but you may not have it that fancy out in the wilds trying to find something to eat. Cattails. We could spend half of our time on cattails. They are referred to as the supermarket of the wild. And every season of any time of the year, there is something edible about cattails. There is a problem happening. There is an invasive species of a plant that likes to live in wet places like the cattails. It's a grass, a plumed grass. It's invasive and it's taking over. And I live out on Redbud Trail, Berrien Springs. I go down Lemon Creek quite a bit, and I've been watching low cattail places, not too far from my house, keeping all these things in mind. And so help me, some of those places have been completely overrun with this invasive grass that somehow chokes out or poisons out, I don't know what it does, but it is known to be anti-cattail. And that's kind of scary when I was keeping in mind where all the good cattail places were nearby. But what you do is go after the root, the rhizome, and you if all you have is 2 rocks, you beat that root up. You're wanting the starch out of it, you don't want all the fiber. So you beat that thing up some way, on a rock with another rock, and put that beaten up tuber then into water and work the fibers, get the starch out of the fibers. I should have said first, you really try to clean it really well. Because when you are working the starch out of the root, if there's sand in there, you're going to have that in your pancake. So in my backpack, I have a toothbrush for me and a toothbrush for the food I'm gathering. A toothbrush is the best thing to go after. Well, the cattail has a bigger root, but it's a really nice tool when you're trying to get the dirt off of things. So get that root stock all beaten up and work it in the water, and then pick out the fibers, throw them away, and go away and do something profitable for an hour, and the starch will settle to the bottom of the bucket. And then you can cant off the water, and you have a wet flour. You have something that if you're really, really hungry, you simply plop that thick, wet starch into a fry pan and eat it, right then. If you're trying to save for winter or something, which is it'd be almost impossible, it seems, if you aren't out shooting squirrels or something like that to eat. But anyway, you would dry it and then put it out in the sun and dry it and then break up the little pieces or get it wet and use it later. But they are, okay, so that's summertime. The roots, any time, the roots, you can do that too. Spring, these new sprouts are like bamboo shoots. You can eat the new shoots from cattails. And especially then in the spring as they start to put their cattails up, and then the male pollen one, the one with pollen, you want to get a plastic bag around that and save that pollen. Any kind of pollen you can save. Pine tree flowers in the spring, and so the pollen is just about pure protein. So if you're trying to go veggie and not to eat animals, the pollen is really important, and you catch that. Let it dry in the sun, and then when you need it, add it to the starch from the root or other starchy things that you might have. And
I just scrape it off in my car.
the pollen. What sort of trees are you near?
Hey, pine, walnuts.
Pine? Yeah.
all
Okay. Yeah. If that's what floats your boat, you could try it. I think I would rather catch it in a bag off the plant rather than off my car, but who knows? And I was just going to say, by the way, ask questions as I go. I probably won't know some of the answers. Anyway, okay, so what else did I say here? Yeah, young shoots, we mentioned the flower heads, yeah. So there you've got various, what's available, various seasons of the year. And then I have down berries, and one of the things we have, I brought some of my mulberries. It's been a hard spring for a lot of things, It was so hot, and then it froze. And it wiped out my entire first round. Mulberries put on two crops in the spring, and it wiped out my first one. And then these second ones here are very small compared to what they usually do. And I wasn't thinking to water the tree. And anyway, they're at least ripening. And the nicest way to pick mulberries, throw an old sheet under the limbs and just whack the limbs. Give them a good sharp whack, and the ripe ones will drop on the sheet. And then all you have to do is sort the ants out. Anyway, who are up in the mulberry tree, helping themselves. Yes, a big point there, the number 3 on your sheet about berries, are the last few words. Take the time to chew every seed open. That sounds crazy. If you're in a hurry, want to eat fast, don't do that. If you're really trying to survive, well, I've put on the sheet what it is. By the way, a little mulberry seed will go entirely through your GI tract untouched. The body cannot digest that open. And so you've got to chew it open, and then it's a source. Any seed like this is a source of vitamin E and a tiny bit of oil, but vitamin E in that oil. So anything with a seed that is possible to chew, these, you can't put them in your mouth and start chewing, but you got to do some breaking up. But anyway, so do take time to chew. Even strawberry season now, try to take time to chew those strawberry seeds. This sounds a little crazy, but you'll get more nutrition out of them. Okay, any question about the 1, 2, and 3 here? Anybody worked with cattails? Ever? Okay.
Oh, I have a question.
Sure.
I had read that with cattails, the gooey stuff at the bottom is like an anesthetic? Like it's numbing.
Okay, now the gooey stuff at the bottom, is this after you cook something, or how are you recognizing the gooey stuff?
Well, you cut it or pull it out and you pull the leaves apart and it has like this.
Okay, so it's kind of the sap, it's sort of its sap, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I tried it out and I did not notice that effect. Am I missing something? Did I misunderstand?
You're on another topic, and that's medicinal. This is an excellent work. Medicinal weeds. Does anyone know Dr. Patrick Jones? He's got other books out and stuff. He's actually a veterinarian who has become a very well-known herbalist. He is. That's where he lives. Yeah, and he is funny as all get. He is. It's worth buying the book just for his humor. And I was just mentioning before we were starting, he says, now if your cats get into catnip, don't let them drive any heavy equipment for a couple hours. This kind just throws in these little things. And he always wants to tell you, these are medicinal, these are edible, and he'll comment about how good they are. And one of them recently, I don't even remember what it was now, but he says, edible, yuck. That was his view of how it's, what? Oh, okay.
What was his last name?
Jones, Patrick Jones.
And are those copies that are for sale today?
No, this is my only one. These other 2 I would part with. I just picked up 4 recently. It's my favorite Christmas gift to everybody. Everybody in my family has one. And I say, keep it in your pocket. You never know when you're going to need it. But this fellow is really, really good. And these are very, very well there's always a drawing of the plant. Well, of course, I can't open it to one now. Here's dandelions, but there is a there's like a botanical official drawing of it, and then good photographs of the actual thing, and even of a kid blowing the seeds around. But anyway, it's well illustrated, and I'm really kind of in, not professionally or anything, but I'm into herbal cures for things. I happened to fall on a slippery bridge at our house and snapped my bone right here. I mean, it was, if it weren't for the muscles and ligaments, it was separated from my body. And of course, I do this on a Saturday morning. Anyway, I was sent home in a arm, Velcroed to me, belt and a sling. They didn't do surgery. They just said, we'll keep it in place. I couldn't lie down because it might go out of place, so I sat in a chair. And anyway, I put on comfrey compresses, I guess you'd say, and it's bone knit. It was named 200 years ago in England. I mean, it's got a long history of bone healing. And I went back to the same doctor in 2 weeks, and they took an x-ray that day, of course, and his assistant sort of guy came into the room. First he said, I had to look at your other x-ray to see where the break was. And I'm thinking, that sounds kind of good. And and then the doctor comes in and he said, take off that sling. You don't need that anymore. You're healed. This is 2 weeks after the day I separated my arm from my body. And so anyway, bone knit or comfrey. I've just got 4 plants growing now. And they say once they get going, you can't get rid of them. They spread. They are very, very easy to grow. But boy, I had trouble getting them started. Couldn't get them moved somehow. Anyway, so I'm all into healing things. We have my son went into the research into the Asian literature, and for hundreds of years, they've used certain things for what we would now call a virus. And we have our COVID tea, and I don't know, none of us ever got COVID, but I'm really pretty convinced, because these things are right out of NIH, National Institutes of Health. They're saying that this and this and this and this are they fight these things, and they, especially 2 of the 4 that we use in our tea, attach to the spike protein, dock on the spike protein, and it can't dock on anything else. If its docks are full, it can't hitch onto you. So this is the kind of thing you want to fight.
And that's with the comfrey?
No,
Oh, that's your
I was going to bring that with me. I'll have to send it to Martha. And it's stinging nettle root, stinging nettle leaf. Oh dear, I'm forgetting what lemon balm. Lemon balm. We buy them dry through Amazon. And the last one is citrus. No, see, is it orange? It was orange peeling, and you want to get organic. An orange tree has flowers and fruit, all stages. They're being sprayed all the time. And I didn't used to be so worried about organic. I'm much more worried now, finding out more things about what's done to our food crops. But anyway, and the orange is oily, the peel is oily, and it's got full of pits. And so you want to be sure to get dry. It's dry powdered orange peel is in the recipe. But I'll get your email after, and I can email you the recipe. I really meant to have that with me. But anyway, I think God planned things out ahead somehow. Seems like there's a lot of good things out there in the wild. Okay, let's look at the section on oil, calories, and protein. Here we are to nuts. How many of you are experienced in opening black walnuts? Do you have a hammer and a piece of cement, or
No, I have an actual,
some kind of a cracker? Yes. I bought one, and I can't even make it work. It is so hard to work.
It can be difficult,
Yeah, I just use a rock hammer and a piece of cement.
all over the house.
Yeah. But I battle these squirrels for these. You have to get them out of their hull. They're in a green hull, and the best way I've found, up in the tree, while the nut's still up there, some kind of moth lays eggs on the outer part, green part, hull. And if you put those in a bag for a little while, little white worms, have you seen the little white worms hatch out on the hull? And they sort of like eat it up. They sort of make it all mushy. And I simply gather the nuts in their hulls, put them in a garbage bag, let them sit for a while, and then open them up. How you doing in there? These little white worms, and just take my gloves and smush the hull off of them. When I was a kid, we would drive over them with a car, put the nuts on a gravel spot, and then drive over them. But it's a lot less work to let these little wormy things take care of the hull. And then I put them in a bucket, and I take my witch's broomstick and I stir and stir and stir water just to get the hulls off, the rest of them. And then I made a sandwich of hardware cloth, half-inch hardware cloth, a sandwich about this big. And I did three edges of it tied up with string, left myself an open end, and I can roll these wet nuts out into that and lay it out in the yard, and the squirrels can't steal them. The squirrels were always running off with my finished, washed, hulled walnuts. So I made myself a sandwich of hardware cloth, and I get to keep them now. Anyway, walnuts, you're lucky if you have them. Just know that if they're near your garden, they're toxic to a lot of garden things I try to grow. They have juglone in their roots, and so you want to don't start planting yourself some walnuts really close to where you want to garden. Anyway, beech nuts, I grew up with a big beech nut over my garage, and I would climb up the clothesline pole and get on the garage roof, and I would peel out nuts in the fall and take in a little tiny dish of maybe 20 little tiny nuts and thought I was contributing to supper. My dietitian mother put up with it, as long as I didn't fall off the roof too many times. Anyway, nuts, hickory is nice if you've got those around. I have just bought 10 from some sort of conservation group up there in Berrien Springs. 10, the nut that is in Nutella, hazelnuts. And I call them my Nutella bushes. I got 10 babies, and they're on their way now. But you've got to put fencing around them because the deer will take them down to the ground, these little baby trees you're trying to start. So, acorns. Anybody with experience with acorns? Do you know the best oak? It's the white oak. Has the one with the least tannin, supposedly. And tannin is that bitter stuff that makes acorns, I don't know how squirrels stand it, but anyway, makes them kind of unedible.
Recognize the white oak.
Don't know, it's probably not in that book. Maybe here. Will you catch it?
Oh, it's a catch.
I used to be my softball team's pitcher, and I didn't use two hands then. Okay, anyway, let us know. I think their lobes are soft, not pointy lobes like the black walnut, oak. Anyway, see if it's in there. I don't know. This was more about edible plants, and maybe this ought to be there. Okay, so the deal is you've got to first of all look at the acorn. You'll see a little hole in about 90% of them. Something went in there first, and laid an egg or something in there, and worms or So look for the holes. Otherwise, I think it works pretty well. I haven't gone into this a big deal because it's such work, but I think it works if you try to float them. The no good ones will float, and then the ones that sink, are still have a good acorn in them. But you've got to peel that thing out and sort of mash it up. You want it not quite powdery, but pretty close to powdery, and you've got to put it in water and bring it to a boil. And pour off the water because the tannins go with the water. And if you've got a really nice white oak that isn't too bitter with tannin already, maybe one washing will do like that. But most of the time, you've got to do it several times to even make it edible. And you don't want too much of that tannic acid in you, so you have to work at these. But I know people that go into it in a big way, have a good source of the right type of acorn, and I think they just have mashed the whole thing, haven't bothered to try to take the meat out of the shell, and they then just start washing it, and stuff will float that they don't want. And anyway, they have made literally pounds and pounds of dried oak flour for use later. And it's a nut, so it's higher in protein. It isn't just like plain starchy flour. So it's something that takes a lot of work, but it's out there. Was there an oak tree in that?
There is,
Which is it?
it just says oak tree. And
Oh.
it, notes of interest, the acorn from white oak is generally sweeter,
Yeah.
more apt to be palatable.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But anyway, it gives you instructions on it.
Yeah, the tannin is very bitter, so that's what they mean by it's less tannin, more sweet. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, some on these acorns. No. Okay, let's look at grass. I just grabbed a few grasses around. I have never taken the time to even identify what these are. These grow around on I have 10 acres on Redbud, my farm, and I have no idea what these are. I'm hoping these may be a wild rice, and I'm going to watch them more carefully this year because I've never followed them up and see what they really make in the fall, in way of a seed. But actually, I don't know of any poisonous grass. And if you can get them with the seeds pretty well formed, that's more food for you if you can figure how to get it out. A lot of the time with grasses, you just put some stuff in your mouth and start to chew. And anything like a seed that you're chewing up and gets into small pieces, maybe you can, actually get that swallowable, and then you just finally give up and spit out the fiber. Because with a lot of plant foods, there's a lot of fiber and very little nutritional value. And if you fill yourself with all these high fiber things, you think you're full, but you're not going to get much nutrition out of it. So with grasses, if you know the grasses are safe, go ahead. But do notice here under number, get to where I am here. Why can't I? What number is grass? Here, number 6. Most are edible. A few are toxic raw. So if you really don't know about it or haven't tried it before, if it's roasted or boiled, it'll be okay. But do stay away from blackish or purplish grass seeds. This may indicate a fungus that's quite toxic. So there are sweet pea plants along roadsides now. If you recognize sweet peas, sometimes you may see them. They're used because they climb and hang on to dirt. They're used by the road department to help hold newly formed hills or whatever, new dirt that has to be kept in place. And these sweet peas that they're using are actually poisonous. There is nothing about them that we can eat. So don't go picking up sweet peas from along the roads. You'll notice that I have said that. I keep losing my own place here, but why did I? 8. Oh, let's see.
Talk about the sunflower and
Yeah, just a second here. Let me see if I've got that down below somewhere. The wild sunflowers or tame ones gone wild or something. Any sunflower is good. My chickens love them. Anyway, let's see here. Grass seeds, okay. That's about all I know on grass. I really haven't made a point out of trying to eat too many grasses, but I would keep seeds if stores are closed and we're in trouble. I would let the seeds mature and keep them, and probably if I don't know it, I would at least boil them and not try to eat them raw.
Can I say something?
Sure,
There's
absolutely.
a weed out there called poison hemlock,
Yes,
and you're right, it's got purplish on it, on the stem.
on the stem.
But they're not, like, the Queen's Anne lace?
Mm-hmm.
Well, these things, I don't know if you all know what poison, but they're poisonous to you.
Yeah.
Even if you break it open,
and get the oil on your skin.
Wow.
It can get down into your body, and it can make you throw up, it can make you vomit, and if you ingest it,
Yeah.
it can kill you.
Is that the one that looks like Queen Anne's lace?
Comparatively, but not a full, it's best just to find out what it looks like, because if you're going out working in the woods, and this stuff grows around here.
Yeah.
And you bust it,
You don't want to even pull it up or anything.
no, you want to wear gloves.
Yeah.
You don't want that stuff on you at all.
Well, the Queen Anne's lace,
And it looks like, poison hemlock, and when you go down the stem, you'll see the purplish on it like
okay,
you got in here.
okay. The Queen Anne's lace has to have that drop of blood in the middle of the flower.
It's got right in the center,
It's
right?
one of the little flowers is red purple, and it's because Queen Anne poked herself with her needle while she was doing something.
It also says, I forgot what they call them, but underneath the Queen's Anne lace, it's got those green fingers coming out. So trying to tell the difference between them. On a poison hemlock,
There's
they're not
no,
like that.
Okay.
And the heads aren't as full as a Queen's Anne
Okay.
lace.
not as compact, are they?
When you go down the stem and you see like fuzz on it and purplish
Yeah.
on there,
Walk away, huh?
you leave it alone.
We need a good book.
Touch it, just don't break it open.
Do you still have the book? Look in the red section of the book. That's the poison things. And see if there's a poison hemlock, the red-edged, yeah. Okay. So, grass seeds, yeah. Other seeds, okay, sunflower. Lamb's quarters. Oh boy, you're going to have some to eat. This is a lamb's quarter. Does everybody know lamb's quarters? This is, I have boxes and boxes of this in my freezer. It's my favorite weed, and I sort of propagate it along any fence row. I let them go to maturity, and they'll cast their seeds around, and I always have good crops the next spring. It's my first crop.
I'm growing it great in my garden right now.
Yeah. That's my problem weeding my garden. I can't pull them up until they're a little bigger, then I can eat them. But anyway, I have them head high. My chicken area, I had a compost pile for the chickens to make into compost. They're quick at making, they scratch everything up and mix everything up and make compost. I had 6 chickens. Within a week and a half, 3 of them were dead by hawks. Just all of a sudden, it was chicken dinner time for the hawks. And I was so dumb, I didn't do something to protect them, and now I've got them protected. They were just loose in my fenced garden area, and I had a corner for compost. And now where the chickens are not scratching anymore because I have them under cover, this stuff is my head high. I walked in there to look for some today, and I thought, ooh, this is too big to eat. It was putting all its little side shoots on, and I would when I go to pick it, I would just take the side shoots now. But it's a really yummy. Who was it?
How do you prepare it?
Just boil it in some water. And I will mention things like a leaf like this or dandelions or things. Mostly, I try to cook them whole because you lose fewer nutrients when you're boiling something if the plant is still pretty much intact. If you chop it up a whole lot, there's a lot more loss to water, a lot more cut edges, they're losing good things.
Is it okay to eat that without boiling it?
Oh, you could, yeah, if you're really hungry. Yeah. And the new growth is always the more tender. Okay, lamb's quarters. Shepherd's purse. I don't have any here. I don't even seem to grow it around my place very well, but you can find, I'm sure it's in the book, and you can see what it looks like. And peppergrass, I'm sure that's probably around too, but I haven't found a lot of it. I'm just thinking around my place. Yeah, okay. How did I not get to? I've got to be sure I mentioned something here. Okay, let's look on down to number 8, cattail pollen. I've mentioned up above when we talked about cattails being the supermarket of the wild, that the pollen is very high in protein, and that's good stuff to try to collect. Red clover, any other clovers? All my red clover flowers are now in this stage, and so any part of any clover, your little common white clovers that are in your lawn, unless you hit it with some poison, you better not eat out of your lawn if you did. But these are all edible. As kids, did you ever pull out the red clovers? little flower parts and suck it sweet, a little bit of nectar at the bottom. These things I have never noticed are sweet, but if you're really desperate, you can just chew these and swallow them. Or just chew a while until you got everything out of it that's good, and then patooey. So you're not just filling yourself up with fiber, but any clover in any stage is good, is edible, and not. I don't know of any poisonous ones. Anyway, yeah, the whole plant there. Pine trees will put out spring catkins, yellow or quite whitish, but yellowish little growths, kind of on the ends of branches. Try to catch the pollen. You can mix it with other things. If you've got some cattail flour, you can add it to there. Anyway, various ways to use it and add protein to things. Okay, green plants that give vitamins and minerals. Let's go to number 11. Purslane. This is grown commercially in countries, especially in Europe. They grow it and sell it as a vegetable. Okay.
I haven't seen any in my garden yet.
Oh.
I know purslane comes on just a little bit. It starts about now, I think, in the gardens, and then.
Now I'm going to be disgusted at myself. I'm not seeing my purslane, and it was not cooked. I just brought. I pulled them up and washed off the roots. Isn't that something? Well, yeah, goofs there. Anyway, it's you can look in the book and see what it looks like, but I really, really enjoy it because it's kind of lemony. It's a little sour, which I enjoy, and I went right by the clover type things. This I don't even know the name of. I have never been curious enough to look it up. I have eaten this all my life. When I'm weeding the garden, if I pull up a little one of these, I just pop it in my mouth without the root. It is really, I call it sour clover. That's not its name.
Might be wood sorrel.
Yes, that's.
Do you think that's what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, as I say, I'm really, really dumb because I've never even looked it up. I just eat it. And so anytime I'm weeding in the garden, all of these get eaten. And so I brought enough that you can, we'll put it over with the food later. You can.
Is that the plant that has the small little?
Yellow.
Yellow flowers and little
It's a
pods.
stem, a pod.
It's a little long pod, little long pointy pod.
How long?
Oh, half inch, yeah. Yeah. And the pod is good to eat because anything with seeds coming along has got a little more nutrition to it, and it's all lemony. It's really, really neat.
The pods when I was young, but I didn't eat them.
Yeah, the leaves too. Yeah. Okay. Okay, number 12. That's lamb's quarters. You have a sheet, one of your sheets. I just ran into this the other night, so I copied it off, but this comes from the University of California. It's the one that I have around my place is the bottom left, the one called red root, and that, I have some of them here. I didn't grab enough. I'm letting them grow in my garden until they get bigger, then I'm going to cook them up. But it has this red root, and I'm still bugged about the other thing I just didn't get here. Anyway, that's very identifying, is the red root part. And I don't know about these others that show in that California. Those must be West Coast forms. I don't like to call it pigweed. It's amaranth. This is amaranth, and if you don't eat it young, let it go to maturity, and it'll put out these tiny, tiny little seeds. And you try to get a sheet under it in time, because boy, once they drop to the ground, there's no picking them up. And but the seeds are very excellent food too. Why I really like amaranth? I mean, I'm tickled about this plant. This was the first plant to develop a resistance to Roundup. And so they had to double up on Roundup and give it to the plants in much more concentration, because this is an old plant. It's a South American plant. The Indians of the area down there ate the seeds of this sort of like quinoa, for, centuries. And so all the plant is edible. Of course, the roots are kind of tough, but I usually don't try to cook those. But anyway, I'm just very pleased that here's something that was the first weed to not die when the Roundup was put on.
So do you eat the greens on that, or just the
Yeah.
seeds?
No, I eat the plant. Yeah, I would break this off where it breaks easily, and it wasn't very easily, but anyway, just break it. Huh? Me right now, I'll eat one leaf. It's not tasty like this stuff. I'll have to eat some of these with it. Anyway, yeah, the lemon helps. Okay. Yeah, everybody here must have eaten some dandelions sometime. Good. Yeah, my mom was Pennsylvania Dutch, and that her grandmother, my great-grandmother, whom I never knew, had found meaty dandelion leaves. And this, most dandelions are cut in pretty deeply into the leaf. These were more flat, without so many. Dent de lion is where its name came from. It is the tooth of the lion. And we slaughtered that into dandelion. But anyway, so this had fewer teeth on it and had much more meat to it. And she would grow it in her garden. And everybody, farmers back then, you did not break a bunch of soil open and go to all that work and all this to put dandelions in it. But she always had a row of dandelions that she was given grief about. I have found a meaty dandelion for myself, and I just found it this year, and I've got the seeds already for next year. Okay, plantain. There's some on a plate up here. Just know that it's pretty awful. Not that it tastes nasty, but it's so fibrous. I tried to pick the more young leaves, which are a little more tender, but it's the kind of thing I would chew and spit. Okay, I keep losing my spot. Then the number 15 over there, violet, any kind of violet. Has anyone been putting violet flowers into their salads? One of you? What's that?
We made syrup out of it too.
Oh yeah, yes, you can do that. Just the flower, not the leaf, but the rest of the plant is edible too. And again, younger, the better for taste and chewability. The chickweed, boy, my chickens are crazy about it, and there's not a touch of it where they can get it. I have a second garden that they can't get into, and so I have to bring them bunches of chickweed. They're just crazy about it. But it's all edible. The young stems, the leaves, it's all edible. Could eat it raw or cook it. Chicory, this is only if you have to have a coffee substitute. It's got a bitter root, and it needs to be roasted. Though the greens are edible in the summer, but mostly people think of chicory. I've got some pieces in my mouth now. Think of chicory as just the root for a coffee type thing.
I have a question about that.
Sure.
Is that with like a periwinkle flower, is it the same as bachelor buttons?
The chicory, I'm just thinking how they both look, and I'll bet you they're related botanically, but those are different plants.
Okay.
Chicory, the most chicory you'll find is along the roadsides. The blue flowers, the round, and probably that book talks about chicory too. Okay, rose hips. Do you know, they're often really, really tiny, but it's the seed. It's the wild rose seed. And there's some story about back in which World War that England was being blockaded, and people were getting scurvy. They couldn't get fresh stuff in and this and that, and they knew about rose hips, and they kind of saved their nation for vitamin C sources using the rose hips. They're kind of nasty to chew up. They're sour, bitter like vitamin C would be. But just know that the rose hip is a very good source of vitamin C. And I've mentioned pine needles. People on shipboard back in the olden days, wooden ships and sailing ships and all this, they were eating their hardtack or something and on the sea for a long time, and they would get scurvy. And anyway, there's quite a story about scurvy in England. A Dr. Lind decided to study scurvy, and because it was such a problem with sailors, the sun never set on the Union Jack at one point. They owned property all around the world and colonies anyway, and so there's a lot of sailors would leave port, and a lot of them would die of scurvy. And this Dr. Lind went out on ship to work with soldiers or sailors when they got scurvy, and he would take different things, and he took the medicines of the day, a little poison this and that of the day, and it wasn't helping much. And once he just happened to take along some citrus fruit, and when soldiers would get sick with scurvy, they'd come down to sick bay. He would give them some juice, and they were done. They were over the scurvy immediately and back on top, doing their work. And so he came back and took more the next time and gave it to the sailors before they got sick, and no one got sick on that long trip. And so he comes back and he tells the Admiralty or whoever he was talking to in the Navy, he said, "I've got the cure for scurvy." And he told them it was the citrus, and they laughed him out of the office. And he died before it became regulation fare. What are British soldiers called to this day? Limeys. It was the lime that Dr. Lind was using, and anyway, it's a wonderful vitamin C source. So,
I have a question about the pine.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to be pine or with spruce or fir also?
I've always heard pine, but I haven't studied into that, so I really can't answer that. But yeah, so I'm getting off the ships. Some of the early explorers coming over into what's now Canada and then getting into the Great Lakes in the wintertime, and some places would freeze up and they couldn't go. They would get pine needles and make tea out of it for vitamin C, and do that on ship when they had no other good vitamin C source. It's really kind of nasty.
Things where they used spruce tips,
Oh,
but I haven't tried it myself or really looked into it, but I have seen some foraging
with spruce.
literature with spruce.
Okay. It makes sense, yeah. I drank pine tree once. My mother, she was the dietitian before me, and I was her student, actually, graduated from under her at Andrews. But anyway, she had us make up pine tea one day and drink it in Foods Lab. And I think I tasted it for about 5 days. It's just about exactly like turpentine. It was fierce, just fierce.
Do you have anything that you cannot get from any other source?
Well,
It tastes so good.
in the middle of the winter, when you're looking for a vitamin C source, that was it, Okay, here's good old nettles, number 19. Good nettles, oh boy. I've heard that people with arthritis will rub their hands through nettles on purpose, and it supposedly helps the arthritis. I think probably you're in such pain you don't notice that you had arthritis. I don't know. Does anyone ever heard of such a thing?
I've heard it, but I've not tried it.
No. Anyway, so the nettles, you want them young and tender. You do need to protect yourself while you're harvesting. You got to boil them. Drying actually disables that irritant also. But notice that mature nettles have relatively strong fiber in them. The stems, have good fiber, and that you can, I retted it, if you're into flax, you rot it, and knock off the flesh, and you have the fibers left. And I made myself a little bit of rope just for fun, just to say I had done it.
You can weave with it. In Scotland, they use the nettles for actually weaving cloth.
They do. It's that good a fiber.
Huge production, but
Uh-huh.
you can,
Yeah. I've got an old piece of wood with the spikes in it that my family generations ago used, growing flax in Pennsylvania on their farm, and I have the finished woven quilt, all done from it's wool and linen, wool and flax, and dyed reds and blues and things and woven. Anyway, and she wove her name and her date in the corner, 1835. And then she proceeded. She was in a big Pennsylvania Dutch group family, and she died in her 20s of TB. And she'd made a quilt, a woven comfort. They called them the comforts, comforter. Anyway, she'd given it to all of her brothers and sisters. They all had one, and I got one of them now, down through my mom. Okay, so these, and by the way, I think the business about nettles making rope are in the front of this book, this nature-bound book, and giving you ideas on how to make some string or ropes or something, string at least if you really are in need. So the more mature any plant gets, the more fibrous it becomes. The older plants and grasses, I'm saying chew and spit, or you can make teas maybe. Here at the end of the sheet is water. Now, when you can't boil it, you could make a solar still. Anyone done this? You need clear plastic. I have a clear plastic shower curtain. When I saw it in the store, I thought, who would ever buy a clear plastic shower curtain? I want a little more privacy, I think, in the shower. But anyway, I got a clear plastic shower curtain, and I have it in the trunk of the car. And you find as low a place you can and as wet an area as possible. Dig a hole. Put your pan in the bottom of the hole, put the plastic over the top of the hole, and actually first you could throw in green things, leafy things, grasses in there too, and you put your plastic over the hole, put a rock in the middle, and the condensation, the sun will shine on that thing and condense water up on your plastic, and the rock will make it drip just down in the center into your pan in the bottom. So that's a solar still. You don't get a lot real fast, but you could survive maybe if you work at it, if you have some clear plastic. You have to put rocks around the plastic on the ground to keep it from falling in. But anyway, the other way to gather water, of course, you want to be able to boil something out of a lake or a creek or something. Ideally, you're using more moving water creeks, not more stagnant ponds, but another way to gather water is the dew in the morning. You wrap a couple towels around your ankles, go out and walk in the dewy grass. As soon as it's wet and miserable, you take it and wring it out and put it on there again and go out and keep walking until you have enough water for the day. It can take quite a bit of time, but it's doable. And that you need to treat like you got it out of a creek or something. You need to boil it. But there's a little bit of water. Some people would take a garbage bag and put it over a leafy branch and cinch it off, and then just the leaves trying to, do their respiration there in that bag and all, they will drip some, probably water of guttation it's called, but anyway, leaves will drip water if they're hot enough and stuff and wet. But anyway, there are various ways to gather water, and my son showed this one. Where do I have it here? Didn't I put it in here? Boil. It's about water. Let's see. Okay, it's under the bold word water, and the last sentence in that first little paragraph, number 2, cut a grapevine off around head height, and it will drip water. My son did this in the woods behind our house, and that poor grapevine dripped for days. And if any of you are grape growers, what about pruning your grapes? What do you do so the grapes won't kill themselves by dripping all their? You've got to cut them when they're dormant. This is why they're out there in the middle of the winter doing it. Or you have to have a cauterizing cutter and cauterize the cut, burn it, seal it. Otherwise, grapes just drip and kill themselves finally, or weaken themselves so badly. So you want to cut a vine, a good-sized vine, if you can find it, as high as you can reach, so that when it starts to drip, you can have it drip in your cup. But that one in that woods behind us went on for a couple, 3 days, dripping enough to maybe sort of keep you alive for water. Okay, folks, that's pretty much what I have here. I will quickly mention one last thing because I was so embarrassed about this, so I have to pass it on. I am into, medicinal herbs, and that's why I like this book, Medicinal Weeds. And I have made a pain medication that is, they call it, now I'm not coming up with the right word, what's a painkiller? No, opium. They call it the opium plant. And it's wild lettuce. Have you heard of wild lettuce? It makes a latexy, a milky sap. And I don't know why they call it lettuce. Nobody would ever eat this stuff. It's bitter as all get, but the sap looks like a dandelion's sap. Anyway, if you're a purist, you rip the leaves off the plant and then you sit there with a knife trying to catch the drops of latex until the plant heals itself. But anyway, I was taking these leaves and I just break them up a bit, put them in a pot, simmer them. You don't want it to boil. Just simmer, simmer, simmer. A crock pot at the right setting is really nice. And you simmer, then you fish out all the weeds, and you cook that down to kind of a thick. It gets blacker and blacker as it cooks down until it will be, it'll drop, like a dropper could drop it through. And I was making all this pain medication, and it is powerful. It's called opium lettuce. There is nothing habit-forming in it, zero habit-forming substance. And look into opium lettuce, or what's that? I didn't bring any. This is not edible. I mean, it won't kill you. It's not poisonous, but it's nasty, bitter.
I was growing that
Well,
in my garden, and something came and
ate it up. I'm sure deer-type people, animals would do it. But here's what happened. I was carrying along, and I kept finding bigger plants, and I was favoring them in my garden, letting them go to seed, and I was really tickled because I had all these bigger plants. And I made my last year's pain medication from them. And I don't know if any of you were with Lakeland years ago, Dr. William Bach. You know the name B-O-C-K, Dr. William Bach. He's now like 92. But anyway, I got well acquainted with his wife because she was in my DAR chapter. But anyway, he broke a hip, and then he had this and that, and he came out of the hospital in big pain. And I said, I've got the cure for you, and I gave him some of my opium. And he told me later, he says, really, that didn't do a thing for me at all. And I'm saying, what? Because I say on the bottle, don't take more than 1 or 2 drops until you see, how you react to it and all that. But he said, really, it didn't. And then, to my chagrin, this leaf has no thorns on the back of it. I'll leave it here for you to look at. The real opium lettuce.
What did you give him?
Well, I have no idea. It didn't kill him. It didn't do him any good. I haven't even found out what it is. Maybe I should look in the book and see if...
Is it sow thistle, maybe?
I don't know. It grows. We had one plant go up to our gutters on the house. It grows massively if it's in a good place. But do take a look and just feel it. There are cute little barbs all lined up along the main vein of this leaf. And that is a fabulous painkiller when you get it processed properly.
So
But
I have a question about that processing. Once you've got your ball of black goo, do you put it like in some alcohol and make a tincture with it?
I do. I went to it's a lot of work to get to that point. And I put it in my refrigerator, and then I needed it like the end of winter, pulled it out, and there was a layer of mold on it. So I got my son to go, because I would not go, to the nearby Harding's. He bought me a bottle of vodka. And, I mean, you read vanilla bottles. They're 47% alcohol, the flavorings. The flavorings are oils, and you've got to keep them from going rancid. And so anything I do that I'm wanting to save, it goes into vodka now.
And then, you just drink it, or can you apply
I have it. I save all my little vanilla bottles from Costco, or no, Aldi's little vanilla.
apply it topically to a boo-boo, or do you just drink it?
I have only. I think they say you can apply it, but I've only had people use it orally, drink it. But I just use vanilla bottles and just drop a couple drops out at a time. But so I haven't ever gotten drunk on any of my concoctions. Okay, folks, I've probably gone way too long. I should have had a clock in front of me here.
One thing I wanted to ask, is this up? One thing I wanted to mention elderberries right now. And I don't know,
Oh, yes.
I do not know the nutritional value of this, but right now they're blooming. And the first time I ever heard anybody talk about edible wild plants, what she did was she took the elderberry flowers, just snipped them with a little bit of stem, and then made a pancake batter that was a little bit thin, put the elderberry in the pancake batter and right into the skillet. And then as it's cooking on the first side, she just snipped off the stems, and then flipped it over. It's just one of those fun things that you can do with your kids. We did it when we'd go
Now, this is the
camping
flowers,
around
not
4th
the
of
berry.
July, just the flowers. And it
haven't
was
done that.
pretty interesting, And so we did that with our kids growing up, camping and stuff. And then, of course, later on, the elderberries themselves are very good and medicinal, too. That's the sambucol.
Throat and coughs and all that.
Well, Sylvia, this has been really good. Does anybody have any other questions?
Well, while you sample things, feel free to.
Yeah. We're going to, we'll let people get up and sample, and there's little things. I brought some lemon slices in case you like
Help
it
the
on
greens.
your greens. But thank you very, very much for each of you coming. I wanted to mention, though, right now, we're trying to figure out a method of being able to send reminders out to people every time we have a Lost Skills class. And we really need your email so we can kind of send a group email out to people. That'd be a faster way of doing it. But if you don't have email, make sure that we have your phone number. If you do texting, we can send that out too. So either talk with Alice or myself. But thank you so much, and we'll just have a little prayer here afterwards. And dear Father in heaven, we thank you so much for bringing each person here today. It's been such a blessing learning so much more about the nature that you've given us and how you will provide for us when we need nutrition. I just pray that you will bless each person and help them to be able to come back again next time. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. And a reminder for those of you who came in later, we have flyers that you can pick up out there for the next time, or maybe it got in some of your folders. And it's going to be canning next time. So I'll mention again what I mentioned before. Anybody who comes to the program next time for the hour and a half that we do, you won't learn everything about canning. It'll be more a demonstration style. But then you will be eligible. If you attend that meeting, you will be eligible to sign up for a 4-hour hands-on canning class that I'm willing to do. And if we have to have 2 of those, we will, because we don't want a huge number of people, we want you to have the experience of canning. So that will be July 23 is when we're doing that. And you can pick up a flyer at the out there. And then please write in, you got a post survey, write anything we can do better there. Okay?
I have one more comment.
Yes.
This you have to imagine are these little red strawberries. You've seen these little strawberries in your lawn. These are kind of dried up. These are not strawberries.
Oh.
And they're not edible. They're not listed as poisonous, but they're kind of halfway there. And the big difference is how they hang on the plant. A strawberry hangs down. These all stand straight up. The berries always straight up. And I don't even,
The yellow flower?
right now I don't remember. And I didn't even look the name up of this thing recently. I've looked it up several times and keep forgetting, but it's got the little, beautiful little strawberry leaf, everything about it looks like a strawberry, but and kids will see them in lawns, and think, oh, won't that be nice? But it might make them kind of sick. It won't kill them, but anyway, watch out for a strawberry that's poking right up at you. Okay.
You can come on over if you want to try things here.
And Martha, you're giving away your daylilies, the plants?
Yes.
Great. Anyone that doesn't have them,